And welcome to the Twins Wrap with Dick Bremer, the television voice of the Minnesota Twins. I am Derek Hanson. Jack Michaels also with us, the voice of the Red Hawks. And Dick, boy, what a crazy game last night. I'm not sure what time you got home and got to bed, but 6-5 victory in 10 innings. That was fun.
That was something else, and we were wondering how they were going to navigate through the bottom of the 10th inning there. Caleb Thielbar was in the prior spot on the batting order, even though he didn't hit. But baseball rules allow, under these circumstances, you can go one man deeper, would have been Mitch Garver. So the options were Mitch Garver or a faster runner, and they pulled Kenta Maeda off the bench. It worked out great. But I think within all that, there's, the growing sentiment that teams, not just the Twins, they're trying to win that game in 10 innings and not have it go to the 11th. And so they put in their minds, faster runner out there. Kepler got the hit. It might not have mattered. I think I could have scored from second base on that base hit. So it all worked out fine. It was, just so many subtle little things toward the end there with, Celestino inserted in the game to play center field, losing the designated hitter. But they wanted him out there instead of Astudillo, and wouldn't you know it, Celestino had to run to the gap and make a catch in the top of the 10th. So it all worked out fine.
I was watching, I got back last night, I was watching this, and I don't know if it was you that mentioned this too, but I'm talking about Soto, the Tigers pitcher that ends up getting tabbed with a loss. And you're right, Dick. I don't know if I've seen a guy so effortlessly touch three figures out of miles per hour. My goodness gracious, can he just nice and casually drop 198, 99, 100?
Yeah, I think LaTroy Hawkins mentioned it, and he's obviously much more tuned into pitching mechanics and all that. But the problem is, case in point last night, he had no idea where it was going. Now, if he throws it over the plate, that's great. But we saw in the late innings, really what's been an issue for the Tigers, although they are surprisingly good this year. But you're bringing in guys who throw upper 90s, or in Soto's case, 100 miles per hour. But we saw the bases loaded with walks in the ninth, a couple of wild pitches. Again, and the irony is, the Twins brought in Taylor Rogers, and he's been so good and so durable. Perhaps his greatest strength is the fact he doesn't walk people, and then he had to leave with a finger injury. So we'll see where the Twins are late in the ball games here in the event they have to play without Taylor for a while.
Let me ask you a little bit about, we haven't talked since the Nelson Cruz trade. Not a big surprise by any means, right? I mean, that was bound to happen, and who knows by the end of the week what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's a tremendous loss because of his impact in the community, in the clubhouse, on the field, and all that. But, when we hear of these trades and potential trades, we always hear about who a team has given up. We don't know anything about the guys coming in. Now, people who study these things say the Twins did very well in the trade in getting two top prospects, pitching prospects, out of the Rays organization. But we never, most of us have never heard of these guys, right? And the best example, going back to 1987, the Tigers needed some help in their rotation, so they acquired Doyle Alexander. The Tigers would not have gotten into the playoffs to match up against the Twins in 1987 in the American League Championship Series without getting Doyle Alexander. They had to give up a Class A pitching prospect to get Alexander. Well, that Class A pitching prospect was John Smoltz, who, back in 1991, almost pitched the Braves to a world championship and went on to be in the Hall of Fame. So you don't know much about what you're getting in return, but sometimes it works out better for the team trading the veteran than it does the team acquiring the veteran.
All right, we'll call you right back, Dick, as you're getting ready for the game tonight again. Dick Bremer, the television voice of the Minnesota Twins. The Twins and Tigers tonight, game 2 after that exciting game last night. 6:30 is the pregame show, 7:10 the first pitch. After the CBS World News Roundup and also KFGO News with Paul Juergens, we'll chat more about the Twins, including, well, that was news, Nelson Cruz getting traded. Who else is going to get traded? But also Byron Buxton turning down a contract extension. We'll talk about that and more coming up here. The Twins Wrap, again, part 2 coming up here soon. Dan Michaels will wrap up the Drive Time News Hour coming up. And welcome back to the Twins Wrap. Derek Hanson with you. Part 2 with Dick Bremer from the Minnesota Twins television crew, the play-by-play voice, and brought to you by Jefferson Lines. Dick, we got done talking about Nelson Cruz getting traded. The other big news this week was Byron Buxton turning down a contract extension with the Twins.
Yes, but there's nothing linking the Buxton negotiations that got leaked by one party or the other. There's nothing about the Buxton negotiations that are in any way related to the trade deadline coming up on Friday, at least in my mind. You know, if the Twins had determined that, okay, we're not going to sign this guy, so we're going to blow it all up and start all over again, I don't think that's the case. I think they tried to get something done. To clarify that Byron wasn't on the market, I don't know that the Twins, you know, if they were to trade Buxton before the trading deadline, they would not be getting full value for him because he's hurt. He's not going to play for a while. And there is no urgency to get rid of him now if the Twins determine, whether it's Berríos or Buxton in the off season, that they aren't going to be able to retain them. Well, then they would be in the same situation Johan Santana was in, you know, years ago, where if you can't sign the guy, then you need to trade him to get something back in return. But what you're trading is 1 year of Johan Santana, or if it gets to that, Jose Berríos, Byron Buxton, 1 year of that player's service because you have determined that you cannot re-sign that player.
It's interesting. I mean, these guys, you know, Berríos and Buxton are really looking like they want to bet on themselves. And I can understand with Berríos more than Buxton, to be quite frank, because I don't, you know, unless he really is healthy the next year and change, there's not, I mean, he might be costing himself money. I mean, he's really betting on himself.
Well, yeah, and it's always more dangerous for pitchers. Just look what happened to Taylor Rogers last night. Now, I don't know that Taylor's injury is anything serious, but that's the risk you take. Every time you step on the mound, you throw a pitch, the elbow could go, the shoulder could go. All of that, you know, pitchers are so much more at risk of that than position players. And so, you know, we'll have to wait and see how it plays out. Here's my guess. If I were a betting man, and I don't bet with my own money, I'm sure not going to bet with Mr. Polad's. I'm guessing my bet is on that both Berríos and Buxton will re-sign with the Twins. What length, at what price, I don't know. I think the Twins front office realizes that in Byron's case, he's a once-in-a-generation player. When he's on the field, the Twins are automatically better. They have hopes, expectations of contending again next year, and to do that, they'll need to have Byron in the lineup, if he can stay in the lineup, and they'll need to reconstruct the pitching staff, in my mind, around Berríos. There's a lot of work that needs to be done on the pitching side. There would be even more work to do on the pitching side if you traded Jose Berríos.
Dick Bremer joining us today, talking Twins. Twins defeat the Tigers in 10 last night, back at it tonight. You know, on this topic, too, and I think the human nature of a fan now, and we're all kind of fan, you know, we're fans first. And when all this talk comes up, there's such a lean, Dick, to say, oh, nobody can see life after fill in the blank. You know, you lose right. One of those statements. There's just, how is this going to go on life? Dick, you've been broadcasting for a long time. Well, I'm sure even you have entertained the thought, like, well, how can we not have him? And is there going to be life after? And inevitably, Dick, I think oftentimes you find out that there is in life, maybe in form of a different player or someone that rises faster than they thought.
The best example I can give in my tenure with the Twins was Frank Viola, who was critical to the Twins winning the World Series in 1987, won the Cy Young Award the next year the Twins traded him to the Mets. There was a contract impasse. There were hard feelings on both sides between Andy McPhail, the general manager, and Frank Viola. So they felt like the best course of action would be to clear the air and trade Frank Viola to the Mets. And it wasn't heartbreaking, but it was really disappointing for somebody like me. I had gotten to know Frank. He was, you know, a contemporary of mine and was so critically important to the greatest year in professional sports in my lifetime in this region, 1987. Well, the Twins got 5 pitchers back, and 3 of them, David West, Kevin Tapani, Rick Aguilera, were critically important to the next World Championship in 1991. And so you know, once you go through something like that, you realize that we don't know. We didn't know anything about Kevin Tapani, for heaven's sakes, and he wasn't one of the big guys in the deal. But the Twins maybe don't win the World Series in '91 without him. So you have to wait a significant length of time sometimes to really assess, what a return was in a trade and who the trade actually benefited.
Finding barrels might be the story of the Twins in recent games, Dick. Every time I tune in, one's going 430, 436, 447. Twins have found some barrels here in the last few days, haven't they?
Yeah, they didn't homer at all Thursday, Friday, or Saturday. Got a couple on Sunday, including Rooker's third deck shot. Then he hit another one last night. Donaldson hit one to the second deck and pretty much straightaway center field. This team, I think what we've seen really since the All-Star break and before the Nelson Cruz trade, they're trying to change their identity. We've seen much more aggressive base running. My goodness, Miguel Sano stole third the other day. He was thrown out trying to steal second last night, and Mitch Garber got thrown out trying to steal. So I think the Twins are trying to expand the playbook, if you will, a little bit, and trying to score runs, knowing that they won't have Nelly Cruz's 40 home runs to lean on.
It's fun to watch, and at the expense of probably not having Dick. A few weeks ago, we talked about how many outfielders the Minnesota Twins have gone through this year, but also just Rooker now is a name that Twins fans recognize.
Yeah.
Larnach, Kirilloff, but down, but we're starting to recognize some of these next wave players, right, Dick?
Yeah, and that's, I guess, the silver lining this year. Trevor Larnach is struggling right now, but the Twins are counting on him being a big part of the next contending team as soon as next year. The guy that we really miss is Alex Kirilloff, because talking with scouts who've been following the Twins pretty closely here over the last week or so, Kirilloff's name just jumps off their lips as the guy they would really love to get. And, of course, they can't have him because the Twins have 5 more years of control with him. But, we have seen what he can do, and it's unfair to even look at what he did after he injured his wrist, because he really didn't have the pop and the power that he showed before the wrist got hurt. They finally decided, look, let's take care of it and get ready for next year. But, he'll be in the mix next year. Larnach probably will be too. Rooker maybe less so, because I think he's more of a DH type. We need to mention, since we've mentioned his departure, the very real possibility that Nelly Cruz could come back to the Twins as a free agent next year. So there are a lot of things out there. The Twins have a number of players left that still have 1 year left on their contracts. Guys like Pineda, Simmons, Colomé, Robles, all those guys, and they all might be moved yet later this week.
Who's going to trade for Colomé? I'm sorry, I don't mean.
You've got a veteran guy out there who's had success. It hasn't worked out here. I'm not suggesting you're going to get a whole lot for him, but teams might feel more comfortable with a veteran out there than some guy that started the year in Double-A.
Sure.
If my last one for Dick today, if you were going, I know you're not a betting man, as you stated earlier, but let's say you put 100 Bremer burgers. I don't know if that's the official title of that burger we talk about, Dick, which makes me...
The Bremer 7th inning stretch or something like that. Yeah.
Bremer 7th inning stretch burger on the Chicago White Sox making a strong run in the postseason. Would you put 100 Bremer burgers on that run?
I like the team because of the starting pitching. I'm surprised they haven't made a move yet. I think they will, to fill in at second base. And Jonathan Scope, who's here with the Tigers now, would seem to be a perfect fit. You have that barrier sometimes that exists between teams in the same division working out a trade. But I would think the White Sox, if they can fill second base with someone like Scope or Eduardo Escobar perhaps, that team I think is positioned to do really, really well. They might need a little more help in the bullpen. But, as we found out in 87 and 91 and the playoff years since, once you get to the playoffs, it's a tournament. Everybody starts from scratch, and a team can get hot like the Nationals did a couple years ago and, run the table. So it'll be interesting to see. But, yeah, I've liked the White Sox all year long, mainly because they've got starting pitching they can throw at you that I don't think anybody else in the league can.
I want to get back to Tampa Bay because it's easy for me to pull for them now because of Nelson Cruz, and that is a great fit for him, especially with the dogfight that always is the American League East.
Yeah, and they just continue to make moves that just don't seem to make any sense. A couple months ago, they traded their starting shortstop to the Brewers. That transformed the Brewers, and the Rays didn't miss a beat. They picked up a 41-year-old designated hitter in Cruz, and then they traded Rich Hill, who was arguably their most reliable starting pitcher. So they're hard to figure out. They're very unpredictable, but all that really matters to them and all that really should matter to us is the fact that at the end of the day, at the end of the season, they're good. They're in the playoffs, and don't discount that team either. They find a way to get it done with the smallest of budgets, and I think they're admiration. They have the admiration of everybody in baseball.
And who we got going tonight, Dick, for Minnesota?
It'll be the guy who scored the winning run last night, Kenta Maeda.
The greatest two-way player we've ever seen for the Minnesota.
And Twins fans will remember this. It's not that uncommon. It's not as rare as you might think. I remember Sparky Anderson in the 87 playoffs in Game 3. He inserted Jack Morris as a pinch runner.
That's right.
And Jack Morris ended up scoring on the Pat Sheridan home run, the only win for the Tigers in that series. So every once in a while, if you've got an athlete on the bench, it makes sense, and it worked out for the Twins last night.
Going up against left-hander Tyler Alexander, as we like to say in this part of the state of Minnesota, and not your Borup, but my Ada. Thank you, Ada Borup, everybody.
Okay, all right, I got that, yeah.
I do want to finish with that because it made me think of, last year, and, I guess we're in the bad anniversary. We finally have baseball back, a year ago, which is hard to believe. But with last year, you got to see all those old games, and you forget how good of an athlete, and you had the pleasure of working with him a couple of weekends ago, Jim Cott was. I mean, that guy could hit, he could run, he could pitch. He was amazing.
Yeah, I remember listening and watching games where he would be used as a pinch runner. Was a great hitter. And of course, all these things with the Gold Gloves that he won and all that has made him, in my mind, the best baseball analyst ever. And it was a joy to work with him. We'll get a chance to work with him again. The Twins are bringing him in for the 91 reunion in a couple of weeks, and just really enjoyed working with Jim and with the crew I get to work with now with Jim Cott and Roy Smalley, Glenn Perkins, Justin Morneau, LaTroy Hawkins. We've got all 6 decades of Twins baseball covered. So, how lucky am I to be able to work with such great former Twins?
All right, Dick, thanks for your time as always.
We'll do it again next Tuesday, guys.
You bet. Have a great call tonight. Dick Bremer, the television voice of the Minnesota Twins. We do it each and every Tuesday at 5:45. It'll be a little bit earlier next week here on the mighty 790 and 104.7 KFGO. This is Couch Potato Radio. Twins baseball on the way.